So thank you all for coming. As I said, we're here today to learn a little bit more about the funding opportunities for volunteer fire agencies. And did that transition for you or no? Because it didn't on my screen.
Looks good here.
So you're seeing the technical
Okay, there you go.
All right, perfect. All right, so it says you will be muted upon entry, and you're not. So if you want to ask a question, please do. I am recording this for anybody who came in a little bit late because it will be shown later. Please introduce yourself in the chat box if you would like to. If you don't want to, that's fine too. And feel free to use the chat box during the meeting. And there will be time for questions at the end. With the way my screen is showing right now, I may not be able to monitor the chat box during this, but I will absolutely check it out as soon as I close the presentation. All right, we have introduced ourselves. Again, we have Sabrina Howard, who's our project manager, Gara, myself, and Stephanie. That's our team. So I wanted to start off with a little bit of the origins of CARES Up. So in 2020, the governor's office, state of the state, looked at the mental health of first responders and presented us with a challenge. They asked us to create an initiative to support uniformed personnel. At that point, they spent, a year and a half, 2 years consulting with subject matter experts to focus on groups to develop a budget and a plan. And then in 2022, our cohort 1 began. So this group will be cohort 4. And between 2021 and 2025, we have learned a lot. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we have learned, how we've grown, and how this program got to be where it's at right now. We are very, very fortunate to have our commissioner, Dr. Ann Sullivan, who is very supportive of first responders, who understands how this program grows and how we have tweaked it. When we first started this program in 2022, we started with law enforcement, firefighters, military, correctional officers, and emergency medical services. And just last year, we were so fortunate to be able to open it up to 911 dispatchers and emergency communications. And this year, we are so happy to announce that we are opening it up to volunteer fire and EMS agencies. All right, so as in everything in New York State and law enforcement and first responders, we have an acronym. But before I jump into the acronym, I want to talk a little bit about what CARES Up is and kind of what it isn't. CARES Up is an implementation model for shifting the conversation around mental health and wellness within New York State uniformed personnel. So that right there is huge. This isn't an awareness campaign. This isn't a one-time, box that you check that we're going to present you with this canned program, because one of the things we know and we've learned is that every agency is unique and has their own special needs. And we love that. We love that. It's a challenge. We get to be creative. So the model provides a framework for leadership to assess their team's needs and create an organizational action plan, which you will hear me repeat because leadership is vitally important in this program. So when you look at the acronym of CARES Up, one of our goals is really to change that conversation. We want people to be able to come to work, get help if they need it, go home and get help if they need it, be able to talk to their families, be able to talk to you, and be able to talk to each other. We want to change that conversation. We want to reduce stigma and change culture inside of agencies. We want to bring awareness, not just to mental health, but we want people to be aware of what programs are out there, what programs you need. We want people to be able to understand that there are culturally competent therapists out there that will help you find and will help you create resources for. We want to build resilience inside of your agencies, and resilience means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And we have really worked hard to find some good trainings and good definitions of what resilience looks like. One of our big, I see our chat button came up. One of our big, our sorry, I lost my train of thought. I saw the chat button come on, but I can't see it.
I'll
One
be
of our,
monitoring, Nadine. You don't have to worry about it. I'll monitor.
thank you so much. One of our priorities is to look at peer programming inside your agencies. And again, what we have found is that every agency is a little bit different. Some agencies don't have a peer program. They depend on other outside sources for peer programming. Some agencies have robust peer programming, and we want to look at that. We want to be able to look and see where we can improve on it. We want to help you build skills. We want to focus on suicide prevention, and one of our new favorite S's is sustainability. We want your programs to live on after you retire, after you walk out the door, after you maybe get another opportunity to move somewhere else. We want those programs to live on through the work that we do together, but we also want them to be financially sustainable. And when we talk about the CARES Up, the UP is for uniformed personnel. Although we recognize every first responder agency is different, and every first responder discipline has different needs that they look at, it's important for us to understand that we all have commonalities, and getting you together and getting you to talk together is also vitally important. So one of our consultants kind of phrased it pretty well. He said, all of us are more likely to die by suicide than any other on-the-job cause. You know, one of the main reasons we're here is that, suicide is preventable, and we want to give you the tools, and we want to give you the words and the communication skills to be able to help each other. Uniformed personnel face repeated exposure to trauma and chronic stress. We know that. We also know that we can't reduce the exposure to trauma and chronic stress. But we can help you build resilience skills and help you build the capacity inside your departments to change those conversations and help each other when needed. So CARES Up has some pretty lofty goals, and we work really hard to help you get there. You've heard me talk about creating organizational and cultural change to support and improve mental health at work. So we want to look at your culture, we want to get to know your culture, and we want to help you create that organizational and cultural change. We want to help you reduce the impact of workplace trauma, because we can't reduce workplace trauma, right? We can talk about workplace trauma. We can learn maybe there's some organizational changes that could help the impact of workplace trauma. And we want to help you find learning opportunities for resiliency, life skills, and healthy coping. We want to promote the acceptance of mental health care, broadly defined as wellness at work. We want to increase access to peer programs and other social supports. And again, that looks at us, that looks at your peer programming, what you already have, what you may want to build. We want to give it that word peer something unique to your agency. We want to help you increase wellness options in the workplace and improve the use of those options. So this is where I'm going to slow down a little bit, because I do talk really fast. So I'm going to slow it down, take a deep breath here. When we first started CARES Up, we had correctional facilities, emergency medical services, fire departments, and law enforcement. We were able to add emergency communication centers into that loop. This year, we were able to offer it. We're going to be able to open it up to volunteer or combination departments, which is why we're here. The program is going to essentially be the same. The tenets and the pillars are the same, but we understand that volunteer system provides a little bit more challenges sometimes. So that's what I'm going to slow down and explain. So who is eligible? Volunteer and combination departments is a lot more, there's a lot more to that. So we recognize that we have agencies that have part career and part volunteer. And on the original application, you have to have more than 15 paid employees to even apply for the application. And one of the reasons for that is it's that capacity. If you look at the bottom dot there, it says applicants must demonstrate capacity for implementation and leadership management. It also includes financial, right? So are you able to manage this financially? Are you able to take the money in? Are you able to pay vendors? So that is something that when we looked at the volunteer combination departments, we understand that there are some agencies out there that are 100% volunteer. Are you able to demonstrate capacity for the implementation, get leadership engagement, get membership buy-in, and manage the funds that happen? So we're looking at volunteer and combination departments, and those combination departments can be a mix of paid and volunteer. They can also be another agency that you work with. You know, I live in the town of Manlius. We have 4 fire agencies in the town of Manlius. If those 4 agencies wanted to get together and utilize this grant opportunity, that is good. We just need very clear in the application who's going to be doing what agency is going to take the lead in accepting and dispersing the funds. And that can be a little bit confusing. So if you have questions, we can talk about that at the end. But the volunteer and combination departments can be a combination of career and fire, technically a combination of fire and EMS, or a combination with you and some of your neighboring agencies. County fire and EMS coordinators may apply on behalf of multiple volunteer agencies. Maybe you are very interested in this, but you know that you don't have the capacity for taking in the funds and paying for vendors. Maybe this is your opportunity to contact the county fire coordinator and see if they want to help manage a grant like this, help manage it with some of the other agencies that are involved in this. So that's a big one. So if there's any questions about that, write them down and we'll get there. And then the collaborative models across local fire and EMS are encouraged. So uniform personnel departments with fewer than 15 paid staff, county fire, collaborative models, and combination volunteer agencies are all eligible for this grant in particular.
Nadine?
Yes. I was just going to say, Stephanie, would you like to pipe in on that? Because I might.
Well, I do, because we did have a like specific questions about this eligibility in the chat. And so I did answer them in the chat, but I just wanted to kind of go through them again in case there are any additional questions based on the answers that I provided. So the first question is, are individual volunteer fire companies able to apply for the grant? The short answer is yes, they are. And really this both, you know, fire and EMS combination are able to individually apply for the grant. The second question is, can volunteer fire companies apply together as a group? The answer is yes, but one of the things that we would ask is that there is a lead department. And the reason that we say that is that there is a contracting component and a fiscal component. And so we want to make sure that there is an entity, one entity that we are working with in regards to the contracting and in regards to dealing with any reimbursement or anything like that. So there would need to be a lead entity. The third question is, if applying as a group, should that be done through the collaborative county-wide model via a county agency? So, you know, we didn't specify like in kind of the information about volunteer fire companies applying as a group, like explicitly. What we did was we did present this opportunity to do it through this collaborative county-wide model where entities could or departments could work with their county who could apply on their behalf through their EMS or fire coordinators. And this was really just in thinking about kind of the logistics of the financial pieces, but also like, you know, the size and sort of the infrastructure, and that the complexity of that infrastructure. So, you know, that I think is an option in terms of having the county to support your efforts, especially if you're looking at potentially maybe starting much smaller with, you know, there are some counties that have a number of volunteer fire. And so maybe there's only 2 that are ready to sort of engage in that. But the idea would be that a county really supports the potential for that expanding across all of their volunteer departments. And so working towards that. So those are just sort of the thoughts we had in regards to the collaborative countywide model. And then the last one is, since there'll only be 2 awardees, is OMH looking for applicants with larger numbers of volunteer responders? The short answer to that is no. Really, the applications are scored based on an applicant's answer to the questions that are posed on the application. And really what we're looking for are applicants that have a plan for implementing the CARES Up model and really looking at changing the conversation. And so the size of a department is not necessarily weighed into that. It really is about being able to, sort of, 1, understand what the model is about, and 2, make a plan for implementation. And then so they're just noting that somebody also had a similar question about collaborating with neighboring agencies. So I'm glad we were able to answer that. And then there's another question about our organization uses a staffing agency for the paid staff. Our agency is paid staff and volunteer EMS. How would that work in applying? So it depends on the size of your paid staff. So if you have greater than 15 paid staff, then we would urge you to apply using our other application, and we can drop that. Gara, if you don't mind just dropping that link in the chat for us. If you have less than 15 and you have this combination, then you would move forward and just apply that. The mechanism by which how you sort of hire your staff, your paid staff, is not necessarily something that we would probably get into. For us, it's just about kind of like the configuration of, do you have greater than 15 paid or less than 15 paid? I don't know if that answered the question, Christina. It did. Okay, great.
I think I saw a hand up, but it may have gone down. Was Matthew's hand up?
Hi, yeah, that's Megan. Sorry for asking all these questions. I just had one more follow-up. So if only a few volunteer fire departments are interested in applying, so not the entire county, although the county itself is comprised of only volunteer fire departments. But the county representative agency, so let's say the Emergency Services Agency, they don't have the capacity to support the applicants via this countywide model. I guess my question is, can just a handful of the volunteer fire or EMS departments that are interested apply as a group without a county agency lead, as long as one of the volunteer companies, let's say, choose to be that leader and the one who allocates the funding and does all the procurement stuff? Does that make sense?
It does. And the answer is yes. Yes,
Okay.
recognizing that, like, again, there is, one of the things that, as Nadine had mentioned earlier, is, we have learned a lot. We worked really hard to try to get a good understanding about, like, what is the landscape of volunteer agencies in New York State. And I think, what we learned is that it's really, really complex and very, very varied. So without sort of like listing every possible kind of like, variation of what it could look like, we tried to sort of like streamline it, but recognizing that, counties look different, and not every single, maybe volunteer agency would have interest or capacity, or that not every county would have capacity to do that. So we have some flexibility, and really our interest is really just to engage those agencies that do have the capacity, that do have the interest. And so if there's, you're a county of 15, but only 3 of you are in a position to kind of work together to do this, then that is completely acceptable, and we welcome you to apply.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you, Stephanie.
And I think just the other thing, so there's the fiscal part, right? There's the capacity part, but following up on your question, Matt, I think is look specifically, okay, we want to do a collaborative of a few different agencies, there's a little legwork that's suggested before applying. Like, is everybody on board? Like, is everybody willing to do the work with one entity taking the lead? Because by definition, as volunteer, right? I mean, that just has some different aspects and dynamics to it. So I think we absolutely want to have that flexibility because we want to get the opportunity out there. But recognizing that, it's going to be different than paid departments. And so if folks are all on board about applying, having that conceptual buy-in that, yep, we're all in and we're going to help support, you're going to take the lead, but we're going to do what we need to, kind of a thing. I think that's going to be really crucial too.
Great, thank you, Gary.
Great questions. Okay, so I think you heard me talk a little bit about this in the before, but this is kind of where the meat and potatoes really stands, and Garrett just alluded to that. So CARES Up is a framework for organizational change, and it's not a one-time program. Sometimes when we buy into these, it's one training and it's going to change the world. And that is not what CARES Up is. CARES Up is really a program where we work with leadership to build up and talk up. And we have these steps that are crucial to having this program be implemented. The CARES Up model focuses on organizational change, not standalone wellness events. There's a time and a place for standalone wellness events, and I love them. Having a family party, bringing people in, to do a picnic. Those are all very important. It's very important to be inclusive, but that isn't what's going to change your organization. This model helps agencies align policy, leadership, and peer work for lasting impact. We talked about sustainability. I mean, you're here, right? You're here and you know that you have the heart and the soul and you want this to work. You want people to buy in. And we want that too. We want that when this grant is over, the funding is ended, that this work will continue. The wellness initiatives we have seen must be site specific, meaningful, and sustainable. So when we talk about site specific, like Garrett just said, we know that there's going to be some challenges. We know that you're not going to have all of your volunteers show up for a wellness training, right? They're working, they're busy people, they have jobs, they have families. So how do we engage the most people that we possibly can? Your activities should reflect your agency's data. And I just want to stop there for a second. So one of the first things we ask our agencies to do is a membership survey. And that membership survey can be done in multitudes of ways. It can be done at a large training. It can be done via the computer. It can be done via a link or a QR code. It's an anonymous survey where we really check the pulse of your agency. What is really going on? What does your agency need? Because we all know that sometimes people that are in charge don't always know what's going on. They don't always have the exact needs of their department. So this membership survey really sets the tone for the needs assessment, and then that action plan. That action plan guides us. That action plan can morph. It's a living document. We want to be creative on it. We want to think of examples of things that will work for your agency in particular. And along with the funding, you get one of us. You get one of us that you'll meet with once a month, and we'll talk about what works, what doesn't. I very much like to say this to our first responders. We work in a field where mistakes aren't acceptable, right? We kind of have to go to work every day and be on top of our game and not make mistakes. This program, we have the ability to try something, see if it works or not. If it doesn't work, that's okay, because every agency is very different. So that action plan becomes the guidepost for where we're heading with CARES Up. And CARES Up tools and surveys, they guide the decision making, not just the spending. I see some questions. If somebody were there questions in that chat box? Or are we all?
They're fine. I answered them.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So all of the application materials are on our website. If you open our website, it says funding opportunities and it says learn more here. I had a question yesterday, they couldn't find it on the website. So I want to say that learn more here is where you'll find all of the application materials. You'll find the I have more than 15 paid employees application. It's for uniform personnel. It's all on the same page. On that website, you'll find the description of the CARES Up initiative, the eligibility criteria, which we went over, but if you forgot, or there's somebody else that couldn't make it today and you're talking to them, the grant deliverables and timelines, understanding that those deliverables will be part of the contract when we go forward. Anticipated outcomes. There'll be a sample budget. I do want to talk a little bit about that for a second. When you do your application, you may put in there that you want to buy this, 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 and this. Understand that we're going to work with you in the beginning of this grant cycle, and everything's going to be led by that membership survey, the needs assessment, and the action plan that we create. So, there's a budget sample in there. I encourage you to look at it. I encourage you to look at the tools that are on the website and go from there. So if you get the funding, it doesn't mean that everything you put in that budget is going to be an automatic. It means we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it and see where that lands. The letters of support, there's a template in there. I highly encourage, if you're going with a multi-agency example, have those letters of support from them. Like, let us know that they're supportive of this. They know that this agency is going to take the lead, that they're going to manage it financially. The deadline for all of this is December 3rd.
I'm in also, Nadine.
Yes.
One of the things that we've gotten some feedback about is that our PDF application, which is like a fillable PDF, sometimes people encounter some technical issues. And so I would, we tried to make it as easy as possible. And I think what it turned out to be is a little harder than we intended. And so if it's easier for you to just answer the questions in a Word document, that is perfectly acceptable. You don't necessarily have to use the PDF, the fillable PDF if it presents a problem for you. I know that's been a question we've gotten a lot through our inbox. So just wanted to raise that.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, so these are just the basics, kind of a bullet point what this grant is. This grant is on a 2-year cycle. It's $30,000 the first year, $30,000 the second year. It's based in quarters. And I do want to say this right off the bat, and this is something I learned. When you are looking at typical grants, you're going to buy a new fire truck. This is how much the grant is for, and this is what you get. This grant isn't set up like this. This grant is set up to pay you $7,500 per quarter for doing the work. And sometimes that's hard for county people to understand, because this isn't like the Homeland Security grant. That's what I found in first responders. They often compare this to. This isn't that. This is, we are asking you to make organizational change by doing these prescriptive deliverables. If those are completed, that's what you're getting paid for. What you use that money for, we'll talk about as we move forward, but it's paid $7,500 per quarter, up to $30,000 in the first year, $30,000 in the second year. The award purpose is to improve workplace culture around uniform personnel's wellness and mental health. The model aims to increase protective factors and improve mental health outcomes. And the participation includes, and when you're looking at your application, implementation of resiliency models, general wellness and suicide prevention training, and a needs assessment and action plan for the full staff. This funding period runs from January 2026 to December 2027. It's quarterly payments. There's additional funding available for approved training activities, which is exciting. And eligible uses including but not limited to training, vendors, wellness initiatives, supplies, incentives, equipment, travel to initiatives related to the grant will be discussed with your OMH program contact. All right, so the application is due December 3rd. The necessary parts of the RFA must be submitted and will be scored using a standardized tool by multiple scorers. Award notifications will be on or by January 2nd, 2026. And if you have any questions or you need any extra help, this CARES Up website, the CARES Up email is where you'll get hold of one of us and we can answer your questions directly. All right. Give it everybody a second to write that down, then I'll stop sharing and we'll open it up for questions. Everybody got it? All right. If you want to unmute yourself, ask questions, that's fine. If you want to continue to put them in the chat, that's fine. Does anybody have any questions for us?
I have a question. Angela Outhouse.
Hi, Angela.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
If is it possible to include, if you're going to do a group, so we have a tri-village, we're very close, it's 3 departments. There's also a department below us who is a mutual aid company as well. So there's also an ambulance corps connected with that other fire department. Could that include EMS and fire in the same grant or same application, same
Yes.
grouping? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we encourage that actually.
You know, because my department is probably the mid of the 3 main departments. The lower one is more. And, you know, it ranges between, you know, small, medium, large, and probably extra large. You know, and I do feel that in order to benefit our community and our area, it would make the most sense to include as many people who are are interested to join in, rather than, you know, a smaller department just trying to do something with these funds for their own department. You know, in other words, to serve like maybe a battalion, or, you know, instead of the whole county, you know, whatever makes up a battalion or something like that. So I was just curious if you could mix ambulance and fire in the same. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi, Brenda.
I have a follow-on to Angela's. So if you were to work with mutual aid, you would still need to stay under that cap of 15 paid in whatever grouping you make. It has to be below that threshold.
It does to use the volunteer application. If you go over the 15, you could use our other application that's for, and the reason we have sort of the separation is that, as Nadine was describing, when we originally started this initiative, we did have a stipulation that it had to be a department that had greater than 15 paid personnel. And so because of that distinction, we have these sort of 2 separate things, and also recognizing that like the configuration of what a department or like a regional collaborative might look like, depending on what paid versus volunteer, is very different. And so our approaches, though the initiative itself and the model itself, you know, there are some core components, but it looks a little different depending on how large of a volunteer cohort you have, which is why we have kind of those 2 separate the 2 separate applications.
And if the county were to, their fire coordinator were to apply and they cover, right, all those different departments and companies, they're going to be over 15, right? So they can apply even
They can
though
apply.
they're covering, it's
Yes.
because they're receiving the fund and they're gonna do the work at their level, even though it's gonna benefit all of their, right?
Yes.
You don't have to worry about the mix.
Yeah, so I can tell you that we currently have a number of our grant recipients that receive funding this year that have that county like approach. And in fact, they cover more than just you know, EMS and fire. Many of them have like multiple disciplines. And, you know, to your point, like because of that, then they have a much greater cohort of 15 paid employees. And and we work with them on this sort of county level to integrate the model across all of those disciplines. The thing that I would highlight that is, if there is a plan to do that from a county perspective, that you want, and you're doing multidisciplinary approach, is that you want to make sure that your plan includes that engagement piece across all of those disciplines, right? One of the things that we've noticed is that we might have a fire department be the lead, but they're across disciplines. But because the fire department is the lead, their plan was around engaging their fire. And so it gets a little tough if you don't have sort of that buy-in from those other disciplines to kind of implement that county-wide model. And so, my recommendation is that that there is an understanding from that county perspective that it's going to be a multidisciplinary approach that includes buy-in and participation across all of those disciplines.
Was there a reason around the shortness of the application period, or is that how all of the different cohorts have been announced with the deadline?
This one, in fact, was a little longer than it has been in the past. And part of that, unfortunately, has been with wanting to start on a January 1 contracting timeline, and just it gets stuck in government, essentially, like getting those reviews and approvals. And here we were thinking, we're doing great. Last year, we actually didn't get the application out until the tail end of December, which means that by the time contracting was done, we didn't actually get started till April. And so we did not
I was
want that to
wondering
happen
how
again.
you were going to fit it all in, the review of all those applications you receive, and then the announcement, and then, all right. I was
Yeah.
just curious.
Yeah, I mean, we are very motivated, and so I am confident that we'll make our estimated timeline for announcements by the beginning of January. But as you probably all are aware of, like with contracting, it's going to take a little longer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't some effort and things that we can start at the very least, like some orientation stuff, and get started, and we'll just work to getting those contracts executed.
So question on that, for the needs assessment, that obviously comes after the deadline and before it's awarded, right?
No,
Oh,
The
okay,
needs
it doesn't.
the needs assessment is a component of our model, right? So the needs assessment essentially is the opportunity for a department or a collaborative to really get a good pulse on like where your members are in terms of their level of awareness, in terms of their perspectives about wellness. And I think it's also a great opportunity to engage them in the conversation about like, why is this an important thing? Why are we dedicating time and money? Why are we prioritizing this? And so, it really is, it's meant to give you kind of an understanding about like where your membership is in regards to wellness. But it's also a way to guide what are the next steps, right? Like, how are we going to do this in a way that's going to be meaningful for our members? So
Okay.
like, we don't have like this, like, these are the 4 things that you need to absolutely do to like make organizational change in your organization. Like
I misunderstood. I thought that was part of the determining whether you were going to give the grant, like a needs assessment. Do they actually need this? So that's
Oh, no,
one.
no, no.
Okay. All right. I misunderstood. All right.
No.
I was going to say, how are you going to do that in 3 weeks?
No. Yeah, that we know the need exists.
Okay.
I think it's the needs assessment really is about like, how are we going to move the needle? How are we going to advance this effort in a way that's going to be meaningful for our department?
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
there is a question. That says our agency is around 15 paid full-time staff. Sometimes we fall under, sometimes we go over, and I totally get that. We get it. Like we understand that. I would say that if you are falling under most of the time, do the volunteer one, because honestly, we understand that you are really part of the reason we're doing this is because we have a couple specific agencies that have about 15 paid. And the vast majority were volunteers. And we recognized very quickly that some of the things we were asking of them maybe had to shift. We had to change it a little bit based on the volunteer dynamic. So I would say use your best judgment on that. It's really about looking at what your department needs. Are you vastly volunteer? Are you more volunteer? Are your paid staff, do they fall, under, are you going from a dozen to 15? I would do the volunteer if it were me. I hope I answered that question.
There's a question about the total number of grants that are going to be awarded. So for our volunteer cohort, we'll have 2 awarded, and then for our 15 or more uniformed personnel cohort, because it spans a total of like 6 disciplines, it's going to be 15 uniformed personnel and 3 veteran.
It's usually about 3 per discipline. That's the goal anyways. Anything else we can help you with today? Well, thank you so much for coming. Your questions were fantastic. We have a lot to think about, a lot to work for. What I love about this program is it grows every year, and it grows with every agency we meet. Every person we meet is unique and different, and that's what we love about this. We get to be a little creative. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're pretty responsive, and hopefully we can answer your questions quickly. And like I said, when you're answering the questions on your grant, just remember, we're looking for the capacity. Like, do you have the ability to implement this? And be creative. Think about what you're already doing. Think about what you want to grow, where you want to go, what you've seen work. And I'll just leave you with this. We have a fire agency that decided to try Broga. Have you ever heard of Broga? It's yoga for bros. And they decided to try it, didn't think it was going to work, and they love it. They love it. They have people that come in when they're not working to participate. They're now doing it 4 times a week. So really, think big or think Broga.
We were brainstorming at the firehouse at our breakfast recently, and we were like, okay, if we put tactical in front of it, then we'll have more buy-in.
It's
But
true.
so
We've heard that a lot.
With these funds, can you, because family support to the responder is so important, can you extend the invitation to their family members when you're doing these these initiatives?
So the short answer is absolutely.
Cool.
One of the things that we work very closely with our sites is on identifying approaches, right, to ensure that wellness goes beyond, what's happening in like the firehouse, right? Or and the reality is that family is a really huge component and is a protective factor, right? When you see your family as your support. And so including them in the fold, both in terms of giving them the information, education, and awareness about what the risks are, and the information and opportunities to build upon those protective factors is key, and something that we work very closely to identify how each of our sites can incorporate and integrate that into their wellness efforts, whether it's sharing that information, extending. We have sites that purchase wellness apps and extending those apps so that their family members can be part of that, doing family wellness events or family training events. Like, it's one of the things that we really aim in 2026 to get a little more creative and strategize around how do we continue to support the family element in ways that it's just going to benefit, each of the individual members, but also the families.
Thank you.
It's a great question. Thank you.
It is a fantastic
Asking it. Love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we will be posting this recording alongside our application documents. And so if you want to go back and reference it, or if you know others who were not able to attend, feel free to forward that information to them. And as Nadine mentioned, we are available to answer any questions that you might have as you begin to complete your application. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And we look forward to seeing all your applications. We really believe in this effort and feel like it's something of a priority. And so we look forward to be able to support you in implementing these wellness activities. So thank you so much. Take care, everybody.